Welcome back to the channel, Free Riders. Thanks for checking out another video. Today we're going to be giving a one-year review on my 2025 Triumph Tiger GT Pro. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's jump in. All right, so this is going to be a very detailed review, and I had to make myself some notes because there's quite a few thoughts that I have on this interesting machine here. So in the year that I've owned this bike, I've put on approximately about 4,200 miles. I've done plenty of around town street riding, plenty of highway riding, and I just took a trip to South Dakota and did some sections of the BDRX as well. As you've seen in some of my previous videos, I did put a little bit more of an aggressive tire on this bike, even though it does have the mag wheels, to basically see what its capabilities as a adventure touring slash slightly off-road bike capabilities that it had. To start off, I bought this bike to be more of an adventure touring motorcycle, and after this year of ownership and the miles, I've found myself treating it as more of a sport touring machine than an adventure touring machine, and there are some good reasons for that. In general, to start off, the main things that appealed to me was the adventure bike styling, the ability to go long distance, of course, the power, the engine, the fact that it's a shaft-driven machine rather than a chain-driven machine, the modern electronics, ride modes, ABS control, the suspension control and adjustment, quick shifter, comfort was another one. It's got a very comfortable seat, and in general, just the ability to have some mild dual-purpose capabilities. On paper, all of the specs, the bike does seem to do all of that, but this is where I'm going to break it down. This is Triumph's 1200. It is a large displacement inline triple, and it has loads of power. I'm talking plenty of passing power, plenty of power to break that rear tire loose. Was able to handle me and all of my loaded weight on my road trip and everything just fine. The engine is very smooth. It's quite predictable even with a electronic throttle. It has good response and good feel to it, so I'm happy about that. On a personal note, because I have experience with at least one of these bikes, the power is comparable to something like that of an MT10 or an Aprilia Tuono. It has that arm jerking level of power. When you twist the throttle, it goes. Some of the things that does for this particular machine is gives it a sporty feel, takes some of that adventure feel away from it because you can ride it a little bit more aggressively. Now, the downside to that is this engine is very refined, and that's where my review on this becomes a little bit more nuanced, because it is so refined that in a way it does have a feeling of riding a car down the road. It's not like a crossplane, it's not like a V-twin. It's smooth, reliable, aggressive power. As you may know, those engines, Boxers, V-twins, parallel twins, crossplanes, they have a distinct character about them. And because the triple is so refined, the only word that I can come up with to describe it is feeling somewhat anonymous. It does all the things well that you would want it to do well. It just lacks some of that character. So because this is Triumph's 1200cc, I wasn't necessarily sure what kind of fuel economy that I would be getting out of it, but it has done surprisingly well for being as big of a bike and having it loaded up on this previous trip. I did average 40.2 miles per gallon. which comfortably for me, that was getting me about 150 miles before I felt like I needed to start looking for a fuel station. I was proactively setting my fuel stops about 150 to 160 miles apart, leaning more towards 150 or less just to feel safe. Now, where the Tiger really shines is, without question, on the road. It is surprisingly agile and flickable for its size and weight. It gives you the confidence and the ability to ride it aggressively. Now, it is categorized as more of a sport/adventure touring motorcycle. With this bike having a pretty hefty focus on the road, Triumph has equipped its riders with the ability to not only change your modes, but be able to fine-tune the suspension settings, the stiffness or the softness, directly through the electronics with your left switch housing there. You can go through and customize the modes, or you can create your own personalized rider mode, which I find very useful because I do currently use it. It does, of course, also give you the ability to utilize cruise control. You have your hazards, all of that other fun stuff that is accessible directly from your handlebars. And when it comes to on-road travel, whether it be around town or on an actual road trip, those features are beneficial in my opinion. The seat on these Tigers is almost uncomparable to anything that I feel like I've sat on as, you know, a factory seat. It's very plush, very comfortable. It likes to spring back to where it originally was, so it doesn't necessarily develop a contour to your butt. It is the same feeling as the day that I bought it, which I like. It's a very good seat. I also need to point out the fact that Triumph does something quite interesting on the Tiger 1200, which is their placement of the radiators and the fans. The heat dispersion, or the evacuation of heat from the rider, is extremely noticeable. On my long trip, I don't think I ever once, outside of the outside temperature, felt like the bike was making me hot. It does such a great job at keeping the heat away from both the engine and the rider. It's quite impressive. They have the exhaust side, or the front of the engine, exposed, so it's receiving a lot of airflow, and it does help it stay cool. I will quickly add that I do believe you should be outfitting your Tiger with a skid plate, regardless of the tire that you have on it. Having that additional protection for the front of your engine is a must-have in my opinion. The most recent trip that I took to South Dakota was the biggest reality check for me, because that was the most amount of time that I spent on the bike in a short period of time. And it tested out a lot of things that I felt or believed about this particular motorcycle. We also need to discuss the weight of the machine. The bike is well over 500 pounds. Somebody my size, my weight, I'm about 5'8", 170. This isn't so much a concern on the highway or on twisty roads. It becomes more of a concern if I am by myself in the middle of nowhere doing something tight and technical and, you know, potentially dropping the bike. That's where it becomes a concern for me. The Tiger also has one other psychological component to it, which is it is such a beautiful bike. It has lots of painted surfaces, an aluminum gas tank, and a lot of higher end and higher dollar parts that has me somewhat nervous and reluctant to drop it. For me, this reminds me a lot of the Harley-Davidson Road Glide that I had. Not because they ride the same, they ride completely different, but I am treating it the same in the sense that I'm not really wanting to push this bike too far off-road. Has the capabilities to be pushed off-road more than something like a Road Glide, of course. I am just cognizant of how much or how aggressive I want to get with that. The reason I bring this up is because when you're purchasing an adventure bike, you want to be able to take your bike places where you know that dropping it is going to be a realistic possibility. You want to be okay with that. You want to be okay with its weight. You want to be okay with potentially damaging something. And when it comes to this bike in particular, it is making me want to keep it on the road more than anything. Now, this South Dakota trip, or the BDR, proves that the Tiger 1200 GT Pro can do most of that stuff on the route. The most apt description that I can give for the Tiger GT Pro, the 1200 GT Pro, is that it is a refined, sophisticated road motorcycle with adventure bike capabilities. Okay, let's dive into maintenance on the Tiger. The oil changes on this bike are a breeze. The oil filter, with the exception of a slight complaint that it does get a little messy because it's kind of like Ninja 636, where the oil filter is on the side of the engine. That means that once you remove it, unless you put some aluminum foil there or you've got brake cleaner handy, you're going to get oil running down the side of the engine case. The drain plug, on the other hand, is located in a easy to access area. On my bike, I did have to drill a hole in the skid plate so that I could have access to the drain plug without having to remove the skid plate every time. And I do value that as far as routine maintenance is concerned. Same thing with the shaft drive. The shaft drive is easy maintenance, something that you only worry about maybe every other oil change or just whatever, you know, the owner's manual or the service manual recommends in the periodic maintenance table. I want to touch on the fact that shaft drive is an important consideration when choosing an adventure bike. The maintenance on a shaft drive is going to be less frequent than a chain drive. It's only going to require the occasional change of the gear oil, which in terms of routine maintenance means that your mind can relax a little bit, not having to worry about that. However, the flip side of that coin is, knock on wood, if you were to have a catastrophic failure to your final drive, that repair would surpass what it would cost to perhaps change your chain and sprockets numerous times. But the benefit is that you don't have to worry about constantly keeping up with it, especially on a road trip. You can just get on the bike and go. Now, arguably, when you would ever need to do that, it may never happen, but it is something that should at least be thought of or considered, especially if you intend on keeping the bike outside of its warranty period. Outside of the easy stuff though, eventually you will come to a point to where you are going to have to change the air filter and do a valve adjustment on this machine. And that's where it becomes a headache. Removing the bodywork and the tank on this machine becomes extremely time consuming, and it does rack up cost pretty quick if you intend on having it completed at a service center. If you are looking at purchasing the Tiger 1200 GT Pro, that is something you are going to have to take into account, especially when air filter replacement, give or take, depending on the conditions you're riding in, may need changed every 10,000 miles perhaps. Valve adjustments on the Tiger 1200 at the moment, I believe, are around 20,000 mile intervals. These next bullet points are some of what I believe to be the most important considerations if you are interested in purchasing the Tiger 1200, which is dealer support, dealer networks, parts availability. Triumph does have a growing dealer network. However, depending on which portion of the country that you live in, you may find yourself in a situation where dealer access may not quite be all there. That can become a concern, especially if you are on a road trip, suffering a mechanical breakdown, or are just in need of simple things like Triumph oil, Triumph filter, or something to that effect. I don't know if there is any device particular to the 25-year models. I do believe that there are some for the previous year models, which is a device that is capable of resetting your oil change light without having to rely on your dealer. Otherwise, you will have to bring it to your dealer, and if you choose, you can have them set it to a 10,000 mile interval or 1 year, but that oil light will go off after 1 year or 10,000 miles, whichever comes first. I'm not saying change your oil every 10,000 miles. I'm just saying that if you don't want to see the annoying light, ask them to set it to 10,000 miles. Outside of the dealer network is the aftermarket network. We're talking things like bark busters, phone mounts, GPS mounts, crash bars, accessory lighting, things of that nature. There are aftermarket parts available for this bike. They are just a little bit more bike specific, and this might change as time goes on. Take, for example, my handguards. They are SW Motec branded, and I had to get a handguard that would fit this bike specifically because the handlebars are pre-threaded for Triumph's bar end weights, and if you wanted to perhaps run a standard bark buster, you would essentially have to drill that hole out larger, retap it, insert your anti-vibration insert, and then try and get a set of standard handguards on. And I didn't want to do that or go through all of that, so I did end up taking the route which involved me just buying a part specific to this bike. About the only universal thing that I've put on the bike, not even kidding you, is the seal savers, because those can go on just about any set of forks. The crash bars, the handguards, the GPS and phone mount have all been specific to the Tiger. I don't believe I have found anybody who makes a full exhaust system for the bike either. Basically full header with muffler. I do have the Aero muffler on it currently, but it's got the stock headers. And I also don't know that there's anybody who is reflashing the ECUs either, if you're looking for a little bit more refinement and a little bit more horsepower out of the bike. Next, we're going to talk about a generalized what I enjoy and dislike most about this motorcycle, who I believe that this bike is for, and whether or not I would purchase it again. So, things I love most about this bike are its power and road handling. The suspension adjustability makes this bike quite fun and confidence inspiring on the road. The seat is, I've already said, next level as far as comfort. It's got cruise control, excellent fuel economy. The heat dispersion has been incredible. I haven't hardly felt any heat while riding this bike. And it's got easy oil changes and easy maintenance on the shaft drive.
The bike also has phenomenal brakes, front and rear, Brembo setups, and the tire changes are extremely smooth and easy.
Things that I like least on this bike are the rider triangle and the long distance comfort. Where the foot pegs, the handlebars are located, have you in, for the most part, a sportier position. Your knees and ankles are bent a little bit, and the handlebars do have you at a slight lean forward. It has you leaned forward while trying to lean back, and the bars are so wide that it has you in somewhat of a rather, I don't want to use the word uncomfortable, I want to use the word unnatural seating position. I am not a huge fan of the air filter and valve access on this particular bike due to everything that has to be removed from it. The weight is an arguable dislike. It's not excessive, but again, somebody my height and weight, it is a concern of mine. In terms of the GT Pro in particular, having the mag wheels and a more street-oriented suspension, it does generate a little bit of a harsher ride off-road on anything more than just a gravel road. The dealer network is still kind of growing, and parts availability can occasionally be a concern. I would say more so as the motorcycle ages, once you get to a bike that is 10, 15, 20 years old. The aftermarket parts that are available for this bike are also slim. However, based on what kind of bike it is, I don't know that somebody would want to go much further than what I have already done to this machine. And then specifically with this bike, the windshield does slide down on me quite frequently. It has the ability to adjust up, and it finds itself sliding down, especially once you start to decelerate from highway speed. The wind pressure seems to hold it up on the highway, but once you start to slow it down, especially with the weight of my GPS, it likes to push it down.
You can also see that there's an ongoing issue with some oil seepage from the O-ring around the oil fill cap.
And I do sometimes wish that the engine had just a little bit more character, and that's kind of where the exhaust comes into play on this bike, is it gives it a little bit more character with some sound. Now, the person that I would recommend this bike to the most is the person that I've been describing all along here, which is somebody who is looking to spend most of their time on the road, who is looking for some adventure characteristics without transitioning fully into an adventure bike, something like a Tenere, a KTM 890, a Touareg, something of that sorts. It's also going to be somebody who wants that additional horsepower, that additional punch of a 1200, who wants to take it hard on twisty, windy roads, something like in the Smoky Mountains, out west, the canyons, all that fun stuff. Somebody who also wants cruise control, a shaft-driven machine, and then obviously is also aware of what maintenance is going to look like on it. Now, the question of whether or not I would buy this motorcycle again is a rather difficult question for me, because I do love this bike and I like a lot of things about it. I don't know that I could give an answer on it. I would say in general, yes, because it is a great machine. However, I don't know that it is checking the boxes that I want out of an adventure travel motorcycle. And that's for me personally, because I want a machine that I am okay with dropping. I want a machine that I feel capable of picking up if I am in a remote location and am not afraid to perhaps break a piece of plastic or something along those lines. The bike does just about everything well. I just understand it a little bit differently now compared to what it looked like on paper and what it looked like when originally researching it. So I hope that this review of the machine has brought value to you guys, and if you did like it and found value in it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.